I can match Ed. Well, anyway, we decided, Harrelson was here, that we needed to have a trip to bring unity and harmony and camaraderie with the staff. And there were 7 of us, 6 guys and 1 lady. And Harrelson, remember her last name, Nancy Nesbitt. I don't know if you know.
It was Ed, Jerry, James, Nancy Nesbitt,
Coleman.
Ed Kendall.
Ed Kendall,
Kendall.
Ed Kendall,
That's right.
myself, Richard Kemp, I think,
Kemp,
and
yeah.
Ed,
And Jim?
and
There were 7 of us.
Ed, somebody, and Nancy Nesbitt, but
Well, anyway, so we all have
Ed Kendall.
the canoes. That was a big deal. Canoe trips, and I ran a lot of the canoe clubs. Try-high. Anyway, so we go to excuse me, some river in East Texas. Now, it's not the Brazos. I don't know where it was. Anyway, so we pitch a tent. We're gonna get up early the next morning, hit the water, let it rain all night long, and so we just trying to decide. Hey, the river was high. Is it safe to get in that river or not? Well, I don't know if Ed made the decision.
Ed made the
We're gonna
decision.
go.
And it wasn't a good one, but he made it.
What Nancy didn't know, we were flipping coins to see which canoe she was gonna be in.
And you won.
I won. Well, I'm ex-Navy, okay? I spent years on the ocean, so I can figure out where we're going. So we had maps and everything. So we all take off, and Nancy is in the bow. I'm in the stern, and the rivers were really high. Well, man, the current was swift, so they just took off. So Nancy she said, where are we going? So I had the map, and man, we're going to turn here, turn there, and it gets late, and we're alone. And well, it just so happened a few days before they had sightings of Bigfoot. And it was getting dark. It was getting dusk, and I was kind of worried too, So one time we didn't hit the bank, Which way do I go? So I got get a bunch of leaves, throw them in the water. So I was just going to follow the current. I knew the direction. Then we agreed where we were going to have steaks. In fact, I got a picture somewhere of us eating steaks, and she was giving me a hard time, folks. She really was. Finally, I told her to shut up. Be quiet so I can think, Throw more leaves in the water to follow the current. Well, as good fate had it, we found where the rest of the guys were, and they were about through with their steaks. So she was mad at me. She didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. But it was funny. So we had camaraderie a big time. I think she resigned a few months later. I'm not going to be with these Richardson Y guys. I have never forgotten that trip. And somewhere I got a picture I sent Jeff of even one of the canoes tumped. I think it was Ellis.
Hey.
Yeah. Anyway, it was fun. It was glorious for us. I came from a wife that required a coat and tie every day. Every day. It was a huge Y in the South Bend Mishawaka Association. So I come here, it was T-shirt, shorts, and I loved it.
I gotta say, just to follow up to Jerry though, when Ron and I organized the rafters, and I took him on personally, and we were beginning to see other people wanted to join. And my trip to the conference that I met Jerry, I said, I need somebody to come down here and take this high school program and run it.
He did too.
Like Jerry Harrelson said last night, with 1,500 high school students in Richardson and all of our high schools, it was Jerry James.
I thought we had more than that, but that sounds pretty real.
Well, I said 2,000.
Yeah.
You know how those stories go.
Yeah, a little embellishment there.
But I wanted you all to know that Jerry gets the credit for that high school program here in this city.
And that was a tough crowd.
Yeah, it was. One year we had six 6 buses for the ski trip, I remember. Golly.
It had to be, and so we were trying to figure out who was on that trip with us. We couldn't.
6
remember.
canoes?
There were 6 canoes total.
Yeah.
Those are nice canoes.
Those were. And we went down
Opportunities,
the
Robert.
Brazos.
Yeah, was that past tense?
We went on the Brazos River for the first time, and we were there the second night on some shore, and the river rose 18 feet. No one.
Did you guys rise with it?
No one of our people who went with us decided to tie the canoes up, and so they all left.
Well, we pulled them up 15 feet above the water.
But they left, and we watched them go by.
That was
And
Mike
the whole night.
Burgess.
Mike Burgess.
Mike Burgess was
Burgess.
leading
Yeah.
this.
That's who it was.
I remember.
Exactly who it was. I tried to locate him and have him here, but I couldn't find him, so, but that's exactly who it was. Burgess came back, and that was his first canoe.
I think that water was going 160 miles down, miles per hour down the river.
Yeah.
Water shooting up, and Richard Kemp and Kerry McNamee got into one of those canoes and went down chasing those canoes.
No life
I
jackets.
think they recovered.
In an 18-foot flood.
And a couple of them we never
I think he
retrieved.
recovered some. They
You
recovered
recovered
one.
2 or
Recovered
3
some,
of them.
yeah.
But I wished I'd have been on that canoe.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I have a story about the rafters. Somebody suggested last night there was a story about their name.
Uh-oh.
And how they got their name. We gotta negotiate this out, and never did get down to the guys, it's not the 69ers. Never had to make that, they finally realized that, they weren't gonna get away with it, and there was down by North Park, there was a hotel, and they had a bar, and the name of the bar was Rafters.
How do you know that, Herb Reed?
I've been there.
You've been there?
Oh, okay. He's over here going, yeah.
Used to have the powwows down there, right, Herb?
Well, we would have company lunches down
Really?
there.
So I pointed out to these guys that there was a bar down there, for crying out loud, that could be, named the Rafters, and that kind of would be a real kind of neat name for those guys, and they bought it. And so from then on, they were known as the Rafters. But can you imagine the first high Y club at the Richardson YMCA were the 69ers?
There's a lot of power in names.
Yeah.
When we were when we were doing a baseball program, first thing you did with the kids at the first practice session, because we all did a staff practice each week, was pick a name.
Pick a name.
Pick the name.
And I got assigned one summer, Bowie was a brand new elementary school. And we went and we sat down with the kids. It was probably a bunch of 8-year-olds, a bunch of 3rd grade coming in. And somebody says Yankees, and somebody says Cubs, and somebody says Longhorns, and none of it's catching on. And finally somebody says, what about knives? And so the Bowie knives were born. And there's a lawyer in Dallas in his mid-40s, Craig Harris. He's an original Bowie knife. I don't know anybody. I don't know if they won a game. I don't know if anybody
Who cares?
did anything.
Yeah,
But
the
man,
coolest name
they
ever.
were the Bowie knives, and they were a tight group of 8-year-olds that summer, and they remember it today.
Yeah, I'll springboard. I promise not to say too much, but we would sit around afterwards, and we came up with an all-star team because, it's non-competitive, an all-star team, but to make the all-star team, you had to have a really cool name. And I do remember at least 2 or 3, but Stan the Man Hofader.
Stan the Man Hovestad.
He played first base, and Ronnie Raspberry played second base, and we just kind of went around the room and came up with somebody with a cool name to be able to do that. And then I'll tell one more. Bob and Pat both worked in sports, and so they were a senior year in high school. Everything went cool, and then they went off to college, and they came back from college. And when they came back from college, both of them had long hair, and I'm talking full length, shoulder length hair. you know?
I missed that.
It's hard to imagine right now, I know.
Those days are long gone.
Those days are long.
It's just the hair.
And the sports, the coaches just said, we can't have them around our kids. You know, with long hair and hippies and all that. You know, Bob Fleming and Pat Cowlishaw, I mean, I can't even say it without, Bob Fleming and Pat Cowlishaw don't need to be around our kids to be a bag of moms. And it's one of those things that you just put a stake in the ground and say, wait a minute. You know, these are the same guys that last year you loved. This year, because they got long hair, they stayed, you know, and we made a difference in the perception of people.
But what I call the Fab Four, which was Kinnaman, Ellis, Harrelson, and Goodfellow, and didn't fully understand that till I got here. Now, I had a little bit of a role model in Ellis in Houston, kind of from a distance, but watched him and some of the senior leadership there, and I did learn some things from him. But I got here, and I found out first, wonderful volunteer group. And this was toward the end of the term, but they told the rock story about the fields. Well, I used to walk out there, and it's the summer, and it's in Dallas, North Texas, and there were cracks out there. And I would say, if we had burros, we could have done canyon rides, you know, and taking the kids down into them. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, the guides and a bunch of others got together, we were talking, and they got the resources and everything to irrigate part of that. Do you remember that, putting in the sprinkler system? Well, y'all did. I don't know, it was right before I left. But that was one of the last projects I was involved in before I went to Orlando. Y'all were talking about RSI last night. Richardson had a good tradition in football, but it had really waned by the time I got here. I think there were maybe 3 teams, as I recall. But we had most of the basketball, or 2/3 of the basketball in town. And 5 of the RSI basketball coaches came over to try the Y out. And if you remember Doug Pass, Bill's son, and I wish Doug could have been here, I'm not sure where he is now. But, and again, a group of volunteers had so much influence that took a couple of years, but RSI came to us and said, look, our guys want to come to the Y. And so they worked out a deal where we'll take football, because we really weren't doing it big time. And maybe that was a mistake, but I think our basketball went from like 950 or 1,000 to almost 1,500 in 1 year. And then I had the good fortune to, along with great volunteers in that, and people like Doug, to hire a young lady named Sandy. And y'all saw this last night. I'd be talking to somebody and Sandy would walk by and they'd be gone. They'd be talking to Sandy. And I'd be over here talking to somebody and Sandy would walk by and they'd be gone. Sandy basically said, Mike, you just do whatever you execs do and I'll run things. You know, and yeah, I did a little work, Sandy, okay, a little bit. But she did run things. So anyway, those were mine. We did take childcare into the schools, and Sandy did a huge.
What time frame is this?
This is
Approximately.
84 to 90 is when I was here. And I don't know the exact year of that RSI switch. I think it was in my last 2 years, something like that, because it took a while. But we were doing something right with sports because everybody started, at least in basketball, everybody came to the.
Under Ron's leadership, we had, when we got all the rocks out of the ground, we had to plant grass. And in order to plant grass, we had to irrigate the place. And they had these, I don't know, they're 4 or 5 inch.
4 inches, you made.
Ask Lowell had to move.
Yeah, I moved them around. They were about 40 feet long and about 3.5.
Yeah.
And they had sprinklers on them, and it covered the whole 10 acres,
Yeah.
but they only covered,
No, you had it would cover about 1/4 of this.
yeah, and
So
so
you had to move
all night long, the volunteers and these guys. But I mean, you know, the adult board members would come out at 2 in the morning and move the water pipes from here to here so that we could maintain a water on that top of that thing. Remember that, Ron?
Yeah, 2 of them did it every night.
Yeah.
Every
Every
night.
It wasn't
night.
just the adult board members, it was their young children.
Because he was one of them.
That's right.
Our family ended up on Parkview. I don't remember the rocks. We were old enough to walk down there.
Yeah, it was Fortunate enough to be
And
close.
good thing we didn't drive because there was no place to park. There's nothing but dirt.
That's right.
And moving those pipes around at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning was fun, while it lasted. After about the third or fourth move, we thought there bound to be some other people around. That we found interested in the ride. We needed more staff on the job, and not a bunch of volunteers out pulling all the duties. But we did it, we got it all watered and grass growing, and it stayed that way. There's still grass out there. So I don't know whatever happened to the irrigation pipes. I hope we sold them to somebody, but they bound to have been worth something.
Yeah.
I don't remember them when I was here.
When was the rafters trip to the Buffalo River? When was it?
69.
69? Yeah.
That's our last trip.
That was the last trip. And the trip to, Colorado?
Year before.
Junior year. 68?
Sophomore year was Minnesota.
Was Minojan, sophomore year.
Okay. Well, the time was mixed up, but I know the Buffalo River trip. I have a lot of very, very fond memories about the Buffalo River trip.
Yeah, I was gonna, can I jump in on that?
Huh?
Were you on the trip?
Damn right I took them.
And we all made it back alive.
We tried.
Every one of those trips.
One of the things
Not-
I
not
wanted,
all one
one of the
piece.
things I wanted to say about the Y and those trips, and I might get emotional here, but the group work experiences that were created is, I think Y work is at its best when there comes a time when, through all the adventure and stuff, there's moments of relationship or encounters that you have with each other, and so I won't go into great detail, but two of those I remember in my own experience as an adolescent, and I was picking up on you, Jerry, how you talk to kids where they are. See if I can get through this here. I remember vividly Ron talking to me about a week after my father died. I remember that very specifically. Another conversation on the steps of the log cabin when this sounds trivial, but to me it was a big deal when I decided I didn't want to play sports anymore at the high school, and Ron talked to me about it, and you triggered the memory. I don't mean to, probably should ask permission to Pat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Pat's mother, when we were canoeing down that, riding the rapids in Arkansas, she died, and we had to pull over to the side and deal with that as a group, and send Pat home, and continue the trip without him. So, I loved telling the stories, but when you cut through all that, I'm sure all of us have these little, I guess theologically speaking, you would call them encounters that you have with each other, kind of what make your character. But Spencer, I was hoping after I finished that you would tell the story about you, Ron, and the Hare Krishnas. Would you tell that story?
What?
Remember
Hare Krishnas.
Hare Krishnas, when you decided you were gonna join.
Oh, I got a story in that one.
Oh, yeah, Ron. Did my mother call you about that? Like, how dare you?
A lot of
Do that.
A lot of that.
I've forgotten all about that.
Well, I'll tell it then, damn it. The Hare Krishna movement started, and Spencer decided that he was gonna join. The Hare Krishnas would go down there and investigate. His mother got so upset about it that she called Ron to